Thank you so much, Margaret. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. So the theme of this time together is a passage to the new paradigm, which is really, the truth is, it's the only theme that I want to talk about. It's what most energizes me, most excites me, and it's what I'm really just so thrilled to pour my life and creative energy into. And I feel it to be of great import to understand what is meant by this and to understand more about how to activate in ourselves and in our lives these principles that I'll open up a bit here about how to really have enter a process of creating a characteristically new relationship with all things. And part of why this excites me so much, and part of why I write in the way that I do, I'm a poet and an author. Part of why I'm attracted to this theme at all is that our current paradigm, our current way of relating, which I'll kind of dissect a bit, hasn't ever worked for me at all. And from the time I was very little, I was disturbed and deeply puzzled by the contrasts that I felt in this world. I arrived here very, very aboundingly clear that our nature is one of authentic, joyful love, and that we're here to express that in its many amazing and awe-inspiring iterations. And then to feel the extraordinary contrast of knowing in my deepest soul and in my bones that that's what we're here to do, and then feeling this this brutal discrepancy between that and the way that most relationships were conducted. And so being very sensitive to this, the truth of the light of our true nature, I think for those of us who are of that makeup, just the discrepancy, the distance, the contrast from that is just more painful. And so I've been very fortunate. My life could have taken the track of just hating and being hateful and whiny about all the various things. But I've been very fortunate to be encouraged and guided into a different way of really advocating for the transformation of our way in the world. And so a paradigm, really, it's the comprehensive way that we relate to ourselves, to the world, to our lives. And most of my writing is about, first of all, it's encouraging the possibility of redefinition. It's easy to take for granted the way that things are, and to think that the way things are reflect just the way that they will be and will continue to be and have to be. And the truth is that we are wired for transformation, and we are wired for imagination and of so many possibilities, and that our minds, our beings, and our systems and our structures are plastic, are malleable, are able to be transformed. And the way I see it is, why would we not do our all to align ourselves and our own life and our social patterns and systems and values? Why would we not do our all to align those with love, and with joy and with satisfaction? So in 2020, I really began to experiment in my life with a few different principles that have dramatically transformed my experience in the world, really changed my life. And those three principles were really taking seriously a process of discovering what I really wanted to, what I genuinely, in the name of love and truth and joy and liberation, what I really wanted to do with my life, what I really most wanted. Interestingly, on this journey, something that I found is that claiming that is one of the most difficult things for people. It's vulnerable. There's a lot of conditioning and messaging around this being selfish, to choose and claim what we want, that to be good, we need to do what we're supposed to do. And there's fear, that if we really listen to ourselves, that we might do something bad that will be kind of out of control or irresponsible or reckless somehow. And that's been really interesting to see. And but so this first principle, just really committing to exploring and listening and then genuinely pursuing what was most near and dear and close to my soul, and then asking for that through prayer experiments. and then another kind of societal myth we have is that when we move toward what we want in our lives, that can be just this joyful prance down a rainbow path, and it's all just, there's some people who are living their dream and it's just easy peasy, and we can kind of disconnect from what their real experience might be. And so the other principle is being willing and able and knowing how to really burn through and transmute and alchemize any emotional obstacles that come up on the path of really bringing our truth and our light forward. And I've found that when we do that, when we move what's been hidden into the realm of exposure, or when we give our gifts, really, when we bring those forward, that can be the most the scariest and most emotionally difficult thing, because so often these jewels inside of us that are precious and are love-based and that are true are the parts of us that are most guarded, because those are the parts either that we're most afraid will be hurt if we share them, or the parts of us that really were hurt, and so for good reason they're protected, these parts of us that feel most authentic. And so really learning the art of changing our relationship with suffering, changing the relationship with suffering or emotional discomfort from resistance, rejection, and fleeing, numbing, which is really characterizes, it's like the foundational practice of the old paradigm, I would say, our current way, to valuing, to feeling curious about, and toward deeply and thoroughly receiving these energies as extraordinary gifts. Because what we find when we allow our feelings of fear, when we allow ourselves to feel them, to fully receive them, fear, insecurity, disgust, terror, hatred, all this whole range of emotions that we've all been told, either directly or indirectly, in countless ways and countless times, that we've told that they're liabilities, these emotions, that we're not allowed to feel them, that our worthiness and our belonging will take a hit if we do. And what we find when we learn to receive these energies rather than resist them is that these energies are just life force that's been judged and rejected, and actually that the main suffering there is just in our rejection of them. And as we learn to feel them, that life begins to flow through us again, energy begins to move, and we experience that energy is not just neutral, that it's filled with guidance, it's filled with inspiration, it's filled with wisdom, And when we allow energy to flow through us, that's the same energy that the apple tree allows to flow through it that brings it to blossom. It's the same energy that the oak tree allows to flow through it that makes it so grand and noble. And that when we go on this journey of trusting life force enough to receive it, rather than react to it and project it or repress it, our life transforms and is guided by a more inspired. Our life becomes a product, or it becomes the outcome of the inspired movement. So I'm going to read a poem to you. That is the poem that really went quite wild when I began to experiment with claiming the confidence to share my work. And I was so terrified after I shared this one. I had such a list of fears and judgments and insecurities about sharing my work. And after I posted this one on Facebook, I thought, oh my God, how dare I claim the authority to make such assertions? I just, oh God, I came so close to taking this poem down right after sharing it. And this is the one that just went very, very viral and has really changed my world, this poem. And it really just poetically advocates for our need to be in a process of redefining everything. It's called The Worst Thing. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made a hard commitment to see as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath. So, one of the fundamental things that my poetry strives to do is to convey the possibility of creating a new authority in our being. We could call that God. We could, but and what it wants to do is let go of this old notion of a God or our highest value, our highest authority being one that is scary, one that's judgmental, one that we have to be perfect to please, one that is extremely impossible almost to please, one that is extremely punishing if we don't do things right, one that is stern and strict and harsh to to and switching that to authentic love being the authority. And authentic love sees mistakes as learning opportunities, sees mistakes as playful opportunities to grow, sees things from the perspective of experiment rather than sets us in these harsh, tight binaries of right, wrong, good, bad. It is intimate and sweet and playful and accepting and kind. And to take the risk to strive to live our lives and to show up in that way where we value authentic love more than perfectionism, where we value wholeheartedness rather than a prettied up fragment of ourselves that fits this narrow conditioning of how we've been told we're supposed to be, that requires constant maintenance and management to maintain. When we allow ourselves to be honest about our pain as well as our potential, and our wounds as well as our wisdom, we no longer worship pretending and performing. And we begin to be available. All of those energies that were wrapped up in that are given then to the generative, creative generativity of love. So I'm going to read another poem. This is about prayer. It's a vulnerable thing to experiment, really genuinely experiment with prayer. And what I was afraid of was that there wasn't a receptive, responsive faculty in this universe, and that if I really genuinely opened my heart to the greater all, or God, or whatever you want to call it, and I was let down, that would just be really, really devastating. And so it was a big risk for me to be honest and open-hearted with my prayers. And but there's been, I think, I would say, nothing more profound and helpful and efficient and effective than praying in this way, and then connecting with what I really want, and then just asking that the doors open. And I would also define that this new paradigm is one of this ease and relationship with creative, generous, loving, benevolent possibility. And that when we do connect with and tune into what we most desire and ask for support in those doors opening, that we experience that our truest desires and the desires of the great wild beloved are one. And that's when just we enter a profound relationship with wild grace, and don't feel such a need to push in effort and control. And we can enter into more of a place of humbly asking and to surrender to the beautiful movement of life, because we trust it more. So here's a poem that reflects just this transformation in way of praying. It's called I No Longer Pray. I no longer pray. Now I drink dark chocolate and let the moon sing to me. I no longer pray. I let my ancestors dance through my hips at the slightest provocation. I no longer pray. I go to the river and howl my ancient pain into the current. I no longer pray. I ache, I desire, I say yes to my longing. I no longer pray as I was taught, but as the stars crawl onto my lap, like soft animals at nighttime, and God tucks my hair behind my ears with the gentle fingers of her wind, and a new intimacy is uncovered in everything. Perhaps it's that I'm finally learning how to pray. So the third to the last line, and a new intimacy is uncovered in everything. I would say that's really the goal of this whole journey, is to feel close to ourselves again, to not feel like we have to be distant from life. We aren't distant from life. We are in our experience, but we are as connected to everything as the beautiful, elegant, perfectly harmonious and interconnected, ecosystem of the forest. We're part of all things. And when we enter this passage of returning to this place of intimacy. That's when we, bit by bit, just recover our life force. How much time do I have, Margaret?
You have 8 minutes.
Oh, wonderful.
Loving every drop of this.
Oh, thank you. You all, it's such a joy to be here with you and share. So I'm going to share one more poem, but first I'll share a little bit more of this story of mine in the last few years that just illustrates this process. And this isn't, it's not, I'm not telling it for the for self-celebratory motivations, although it's a delight to have experienced this. And I do honor this story and this journey, but really it's just a real celebration of life, of this force of life when we surrender to it. And I feel that this is reproducible. And so I just share it excitedly with the encouragement that other people, if drawn, like, want to continue to experiment with these possibilities. So yeah, at the end of 2020, I decided to do a prayer experiment before publishing this book, Susceptible to Light. I just decided to pray to my favorite dead poets and ask for marketing support because I didn't have any. And it was a huge thing to publish this book for so many reasons. It was huge. And one of the reasons it was big was because it was what I wanted to do more than anything. And so I thought, oh my God, if I let the bird of my dreams fly free and then it's shot down, I won't even have that possibility to fantasize about when I'm, feeling depressed and don't feel satisfied with my life. I won't even be able to lean on that fantasy. And so anyway, it took a lot to bring this book forward. And I really wanted it to have traction so that I could continue to give a tremendous amount of my life force to writing, and for it to be viable, financially sustainable and stuff. And so, yeah, so I decided to just try to ask my favorite dead poets for marketing support specifically. It's very specific. And it was the first time I'd prayed in that way. That was vulnerable. It was so playful. It was goofy even. I felt so silly doing this. But I also liked it, and it was energizing, and it was genuine. It was what felt really right and true. And as soon as I started doing that, that's when this poem, The Worst Thing, came through. And my audience of 3, basically my mom and her 2 close friends who were my encouragers and supporters, this poem reached like 70,000 people overnight. And it just changed my whole everything. And then I published this book, and just a couple weeks into that journey, Daniel Ladinsky, who's the renderer of Hafez poetry, and Hafez he's a beloved mystical poet from Iran, from I think the 1700s. And Daniel Ladinsky is a poet who lives in Taos, New Mexico, who's done all the renderings of Hafez poetry that have made Hafez like a superstar to the Western world. And it's by far my most primary poetic inspiration. And Hafez was on my team of dead poets that I was praying for. And yeah, and a couple of weeks into this, I just got an email out of the blue from Daniel Ladinsky. And he said, I don't know why I'm reaching out to you. I'm a reclusive poet in Taos, and I don't reach out to anybody, but I felt drawn to reach out to you. I saw your book. Congratulations. And I told him this whole wild story. And he told me he'd been looking for a poet to co-author a book with, and I was the one. And off we went. And then he has endorsed me to the major publishing houses of the world. And it's just the most unlikely story. I didn't even think people liked poetry when I published this book. And to have found such a receptive audience and to have had things go this way was so remarkable. To have been praying specifically for this, and then to have had these things open up. And Khalil Gibran was also one of the poets I was praying to. And it turns out that Daniel had written the foreword to the extended edition of The Prophet, the globally beloved classic of Khalil Gibran. And now in September I'll be publishing. It's available for pre-order now, but you can buy it now. You can order it now. The Prophetess, the Return of the Prophet from the Voice of the Divine Feminine. And Daniel Ladinsky's also written the foreword to that book. And so it's just a wild ride, and that's going to be published with Penguin Random House. So, and it's just, it is such a wonderful, wild, and playful thing to experiment and explore the discovery process of what our hearts most deeply long for. Yeah. And then to ask that the doors be opened to allow those things to move forward, and then to not allow all of the emotional obstacles, fears of being stupid and immature and crazy and all the things that might arise block you. They are part of our process of humbling ourselves, actually meeting and receiving those. Our ego, as we receive these hard emotions, rather than believe their stories, but just feel through the energy that's in us, our whole ego goes through a process of humbling itself. And then when we discover the gifts that are beneath those the discomfort that we first encounter, then we're in a better position to actually give it as a gift, and to give it from a place of love and not from a place of ego. And ego I would define as just coming from a place that's protecting and maintaining our pain and our hierarchy. Like a hierarchy, it's just a complex way of avoiding our pain by pretending that we're above it and above other people, and keeping ourselves distant, which there's always extreme suffering waiting for us within that model that we've all learned so well. And so as we feel through these hard emotions, we are humbled. We come back into the fold of reality, and then our gifts emerge from a place of love that serves the ecosystem rather than something that takes from it. So anyway, I'm gonna finish with, can I finish with a poem, Margaret?
Yeah,
thank you so much, you all. This is the first poem that came through me in this way. All of my poems just I receive and just write them down as quick as they come, essentially. And this is the first poem that kind of busted me open in this way, that emerged from an experiment. At age 21, I was in a place of acute crisis and needed desperately to find an authentic channel of expression within me, and decided to do an experiment with allowing myself to write what I called a bad poem every day for 30 days to just loosen up the paralysis of perfectionism. And it created a more loving environment within me, and loving environments open things up. They open channels. And so this poem came through on the second day and changed my creative process categorically forevermore. So this is called Say Wow. Each day before our surroundings become flat with familiarity, and the shapes of our lives click into place, dimensionless and average as Tetris cubes. Before hunger knocks from our bellies like a cantankerous old man, and the duties of the day stack up like dishes, and the architecture of our basic needs commissions all thought to construct the four-door sedan of safety. Before gravity clings to our skin like a cumbersome parasite, and the colored dust of dreams sweeps itself obscure in the vacuum of reason. Each morning, before we wrestle the world and our heart into the shape of our brain, look around and say, wow. Feed yourself fire. Scoop up the day entire like a planet-sized bouquet of marvel sent by the universe directly into your arms, and say, wow. Break yourself down into the basic components of primitive awe and let the crescendo of each moment carbonate every capillary, and say, wow. Yes, before our poems become calloused with revision, let them shriek off the page of spontaneity. And before our metaphors get too regular, let the sun stay, a conflagration of homing pigeons that fights through fire each day to find us. Thank you so much, friends. Such a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, so beautiful. It is such a thank you for being inspiration for us to notice God at work in our lives and to
Thank you,
be
Margaret.
open to that. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. So grateful for this space. This is what it's all about. Spaces where we can show up in our wholeness and explore ourselves.
We do look forward to you coming back when The Prophetess comes out. And is it September that it comes out?
Yeah, it's released in September and it's available now for pre-order.
Wonderful. Really
Thank you.
that. So I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see what's in the chat, but
Oh, I'll look.
say thank you to everybody for being here. And if anybody would like to stay on for a couple of minutes to chat, we can do so. But take these blessings with you through the week, my friends. And thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, everybody. So nice to be with you. I really appreciate this opportunity.